Apple loves nothing more than using the word best. The new iPhone 14 Pro is the best iPhone yet, with a 48-megapixel camera system that lets you capture the best photos and video. It's usually easy to validate these claims after some real-world testing, especially with cameras. Newer, larger image sensors often outperform the old. But this year, the results are complicated. Even where the iPhone 14 Pro came out on top, the improvements were so marginal that I'm left wondering if Apple just overhyped its product. Don't get me wrong, the 14 Pro has wonderful cameras, some of the best you can get in a smartphone, particularly when it comes to video, but the improvements aren't as dramatic as the company suggests. A few other features overshadow these cameras, like the insanely bright display, which can now always stay on, so you never have to tap the screen. The dynamic island, which replaces the infamous Face ID notch, is a smart and fun way to make use of dead space. The iPhone 14 range consists of the iPhone 14, iPhone 14 Plus, iPhone 14 Pro, and iPhone 14 Pro Max. It's nice that you don't need to swipe down on the notification center to quickly access these live activities. Like the name, it's just playful and fun. It's worth noting that not every app works with the dynamic island just yet. YouTube Music worked perfectly well, whereas Google Maps did not. I expect this feature will feel a little richer in a year's time. Okay, it's time to talk about the eSIM. In the US, all iPhone 14 models ship without a physical SIM tray, which means you'll have to set up an eSIM to connect it to your carrier's cellular network. This tech has been around for some time, but this is the first phone that completely ditches the physical SIM system. I'd never used an eSIM before, and I found the process very simple. When I was setting up the iPhone 14 Pro, it asked if I wanted to transfer my number from my iPhone 13 Pro. I obliged, and within a few minutes, my number was on the new phone. No little SIM tool needed. I transferred the number to the iPhone 14, iPhone 14 Pro, and iPhone 14 Pro Max one after the other with no issues. The batteries in both Pro iPhones comfortably lasted me a full day, though the iPhone 14 Pro Max has a bit more capacity to tide you over to the following morning, and maybe afternoon. Is it too much to ask for 2-day battery life though? But most of my tests were with the default 12-megapixel mode. I took the iPhone 14 Pro, iPhone 13 Pro, iPhone 14, and Google Pixel 6 Pro everywhere I went and compared the results on a color-accurate monitor. They're not clear-cut. There's hardly a bad photo to be found, but when studying the 14 Pro's images, there were too many times when I could barely see what the new upgrades were doing. It can snap slightly sharper and brighter images than its predecessor, especially when shooting some motion, but you have to really look to tell the difference. That's also not always the case. The 13 Pro sometimes took better photos with less noise. I was more surprised to see how often the Pixel 6 Pro kept up. Lastly, Apple says the iPhone 14 has a new internal design that makes it easier, and cheaper, to replace the back glass in the event of an accidental drop. I'm happy to hear that, but I'll wait to see what the folks at iFixit have to say about it. At the end of the day, what I find myself liking the most are the new features in iOS 16, many of which aren't restricted to this specific iPhone model. I love the new lock screen, the ability to copy the subject out of a photo and paste it anywhere, and you can finally edit messages. If you have a recent iPhone, you can probably skip the iPhone 14 Pro and just upgrade to the new version of the software. It'll feel brand new. Thanks for watching my video, hope you like it. Subscribe for more updates, and press the bell icon.